Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Today TV. I'm Sakshi Batra and this is Market Today, a show where we'll help you understand all the latest cues on the stock markets, what's really happening on the D Street in terms of the benchmark index moves and the sectoral action as well in terms of the individual stocks, which are the stocks that are seeing the maximum buzzing action today, and what should be your investment strategy as you approach a fresh week of investment and trade in the stock markets as well. All of that we will discuss with an expert as well who will be joining us in a bit. But first up, a quick check on how the markets are doing at this point in time. Well, halfway through and the markets are slipping away, in fact, towards the lowest point of the day, about 0.55% lower for the Nifty, 17,317. The Sensex is hovering about 350 points lower now, 58,792. For the benchmark indices, both of them down sharply in trade. In terms of the India VIX levels, that has risen sharply to 6.5%, 6.7% of an uptick. The mid and the small caps are down, in fact, taking a bigger beating right there, with the small caps slipping away at the sharpest pace, 1.4% downtick for that one. The mid cap 100 index down by 1.2%. The market breadth clearly in favor of the declines today. 40 declines to 10 advances as far as the Nifty 50 stocks are concerned. In terms of the sectors, barring the metals pack that's been shining bright in an otherwise pretty volatile market today, rest all of the sectors are in the red, led by losses being seen in say the private banking space, that's down by 1.1% or so. The auto stocks are down by 1.4%. That's where the drags are coming in. FMCG basket, IT. Talk about the financial services as well. The PSU banks down by 0.9%. Pharma index down by 0.9%. Media stocks also slipping away today. So rest all of the sectors are actually showing sharp declines. In terms of the individual stocks on the Nifty 50 losers pack, you will see IndusInd Bank as the top loser today with 6% fall. M&M down by 2%. Tata Motors, Hero Motocorp, all of these auto majors are in fact down in trade today. SBI Life about 1.5% down. In terms of the gainers, you have individual stocks that are performing to the news flows. Tech Mahindra, for example, up by over 8% in the change or the, talking about how the passing of on the baton will go through as far as the top management is concerned, or the CEO announcement coming in. After CP Gurnani, we'll have a new CEO joining in from December 2023. We'll talk about that. Adani Enterprises up by almost 1.5% with the prepaying of loans coming through. The Adani group of stocks are also rising again today. ONGC, JSW Steel, Apollo Hospitals, the other gainers at this point in time. But of course, the markets have been under pressure in tandem with the global markets today, as far as the big, over the weekend kind of news flows came in on the banking collapse, the Silicon Valley Bank collapse and Signature Bank closure in the US, and the government of US really stepping in, the authorities launching emergency measures on Sunday to shore up confidence in the banking system after the failure of this bank, which threatened to trigger a broader financial crisis right there. The Biden government has said the customers will have access to their deposits in SVB starting today. The government has also set up a new facility to give banks an access to emergency funds to repay all the depositors right there. The Fed has also made it easier now for banks to borrow in terms of emergencies as well. Let's get our word coming in from the experts today. Avinnash Gorakshakar joins in. He's the Director Research at ProfitMart Securities. Mr. Gorakshakar, good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking the time out for this discussion. Again, as we start off a new week, there are fresh worries that the markets are looking at. Until today, we were looking at the Adani group of stocks and more domestic news flows really impacting the markets. But now it's a global financial crisis, and this is perhaps the third, banking failure that we are looking at in the history of US banking system. How do you assess the impact of the fallout of SVB crisis on India, the startup world, which is heavily dependent on SVB, and the Indian markets as well?
Yeah, good afternoon, Sakshi. I think see, the silicon in the equity of SVC are obviously not going to get anything. But coming to the to the bankruptcy crisis, I think two US banks going up, SVC getting bankrupt, Signature Bank also going bankrupt, is definitely not good news in the very near term. Sentiment has obviously got impacted significantly. The only positivity about this development is that the March 22nd Fed meeting may not see a very sharp rate increase what people were expecting earlier. Earlier, the expectations were 50 basis points. I think what we are hearing now is possibly it could be a 25 basis point hike, or maybe a pause as of now, considering that already a lot of damage has been done in the US economy. As far as the Indian markets are concerned, Sakshi, I think the startup companies, companies like Nazara Technologies have already mentioned it to the exchanges that their subsidiaries had about 64 crores in these companies. Plus, Paytm also clarifying that none of their equity investments are now held by SVC. So I think in the Indian context, the sentiment damage may be there, but in terms of the collateral damage, I don't think it's going to be a significant number. And I think markets are over amplifying the pessimism in the Indian equity market. So I think it's a matter of time before we see a gradual recovery to the stable zone, and possibly today also the markets are just wondering what could happen on the 22nd, because in
Yeah.
despite Fed approval, the markets seem to be quite jittery. So I think this till that time the markets are going to remain extremely volatile, and just to make it specific, 17,200 is going to be a very crucial support number, at
Okay.
least in the near term.
Okay, 17,200 as a crucial support in the near term. That's what you should watch out for in case you look at levels before investing in the Nifty index as well. But Mr. Gorakshakar, one more question that comes to the mind is what happens to the flows in emerging markets like India? We've already been seeing the FII flows being quite, volatile. Of course, March 1st to March 10, we have seen some flows coming in, but that also again change with this kind of a changing scenario in the banking system and the financial crisis, which could perhaps spill over, and we are just waiting for how things will pan out over the next course of few days. Although for now the government has stepped in to see any kind of contagion spreading out and the depositors, and to calm the nerves for sure, but we do not know how big a problem could this turn out to be. But in the emerging market flows and Indian market flows, how will that get impacted?
No, I think you're right. FI flows could get impacted in the very short term. And traditionally, Sakshi, you must understand that March has always been a very volatile month, not only from the point of inflows, but even domestic investors, normally square off their transactions, settle their accounts. So March is going to be a very volatile month. So we could expect, this kind of volatility, or maybe some sort of underperformance, or some sort of continuous selling in the market. Still, we can complete the month of March. Hopefully from April onwards, I think things should settle down. And I think if there are no negative surprises, any further negative surprises, I think the market should definitely look at this positively. I think you will probably get a clear sense of this, after the 22nd Fed meeting,
Sure.
because the Fed will definitely pinpoint, what is the state of the US economy in terms of the banking sector, because, people definitely would not like any further negative surprises. That is very clear.
Absolutely. Now, apart from the stock markets and the equity markets impact, we're also seeing the top crypto tokens, which initially had crashed on the SVB crisis, they are seeming to bounce back in today's trade. So let's also focus on that a bit. I'll go across to my colleague Akansha Chaturvedi to get more understanding on what the failure of the Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank really mean for the crypto sector as a whole, and is this bounce back just a short while reaction to the US government stepping in? Could this really prolong into a bigger recovery coming through? Akansha, take it away.
Yes, so Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, like you mentioned, have rallied after US authorities announced that they're going to limit the fallout of the Silicon Valley Bank. What had happened was that major crypto companies, say BlockFi, Circle, etc., had a lot of exposure to the Silicon Valley Bank. And on Monday morning, today, that the US Treasury and Federal Reserve had announced that they'll be taking a range of measures to stabilize the banking system. And they also said that depositors at the bank would have access to their deposits, like Sir just mentioned. So that's why cryptocurrency prices have sort of come back. On Friday, Bitcoin had fallen to its 8-week low. But now, as you can see, it has rallied over 9%. Other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and Cardano, as well as Binance, all of them are in the green. Moreover, even the cryptocurrency, the stable coin USDC, which is by Circle, which had a lot of exposure to silver, to the Silicon Valley Bank, even that stable coin had lost its peg, as in it had lost parity to the dollar. But now even that, it has gained back its parity. It's almost in line with $1, and it seems like, for now at least, the crypto prices are better than what they were. But we can't really say that this is going to go back to its levels as was witnessed in 2021, 2022,
Sure.
early 2022.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Akansha, for that. Mr. Gorakshakar, your thoughts on the crypto world? I mean, how should investors view the crypto space amidst the current crisis in SVB?
I think, Sakshi, currently, the situation is very fluid, and I think it's very difficult to pinpoint whether this bounce in the crypto market is sustainable. I
Hmm.
think clearly until and unless the water settles down and we don't get any clear kind of news flows from the Fed, and obviously on certain data points as to what is the health of other significant large US banks, because this is definitely now going to trigger a kind of a phase where people are going to doubt on the health of the balance sheets of the remaining large banking names in the United States of America. So I would believe that it's better to be a little cautious rather than immediately looking at crypto as of now. It's better to wait and watch the trend for a few weeks at least, and then
Sure.
once the water settles down, that could possibly be a good entry point. But as of now, it's a little risky to actually comment as to how the trend in cryptos would emerge.
Absolutely. So we'll keep an eye out on this space as well, and as the space develops and the news flows develop from the US across as well. But let's come back to some of the stocks that are in focus today. Individual stocks that have been reacting to news flows, and apart from this overall reaction in the markets, let's talk about Yes Bank first. The stock, in fact, plunged over 12% in intraday levels today as the 3-year lock-in period expired today. Investors were looking to book profits in the early trades. The lock-in period for the consortium of 8 lenders led by State Bank of India, which invested in Yes Bank in 2020, is expiring today. The stock has already fallen about 5% so far in March, following a meager 1% gain that was seen in February and 16% kind of loss that was seen in January. Right now, the stock is trading at 15.8. Mr. Gorakshakar, your thoughts on Yes Bank? How should investors be really looking at this stock? We have discussed this space a lot when the stock was buzzing in trade initially, but again, this is in news. How should investors be looking at this space now?
No, I think Sakshi, in the very near term, you're going to see a lot of selling pressure, depressing the share price because such a
Hmm.
large amount of liquidity when it comes into the markets. I think definitely it's going to attract a lot of selling. My approximate number is around 942 crore shares are going to be released out of the lock-in, and that is not a small number. Although on the plus side, SBI has said that they are not interested in selling their entire equity stake. They may dilute 2 to 3%. So
Hmm.
that is definitely going to be a big positive, development for Yes Bank because SBI holds the maximum number of equity shares in Yes Bank as of now. My sense is that investors should not make a hurry of buying Yes Bank immediately. Let the water settle down because when you have such a large liquidity overhang, it may happen that at least for the next 1 or 2 weeks, the stock could see a little bit of selling pressure. How each bank, uses its investment strategy to exit or book out profits will be
Hmm.
known in the coming few weeks. So I think till then, that time fresh buying is not advisable because you could possibly be caught in the against the selling pressure which could happen. So I think till then I think it's better to hold on. Whoever has purchased these shares earlier can definitely hold on because we believe that on the macro side. The bank has shown good numbers of growth in terms of asset quality, in terms of the loan book growth, but a lot remains to be done. So I think it's better to hold now,
Absolutely.
no fresh buy.
Okay. The other group stocks that are in focus back again today is the Adani group of stocks that have largely led the market momentum over the last 1.5 months as well, last part of February and the last part of January and the entire February month as well. The stocks are rallying up to 5% today after the conglomerate announced full prepayment of the margin-linked share buyback financing worth $2.15 billion as part of its debt prepayment plan, and that's before the deadline of March 31st. And other than the $2.15 billion loan prepayment, the promoters have also prepaid a $500 million facility taken for Ambuja acquisition financing as well. All the 10 group stocks of Adani were trading in the green zone today despite the overall momentum that we've been seeing. Adani Transmission, Adani Green Energy, Adani Total Gas and Adani Power locked in at 5% upper circuit as well. Mr. Gorakshakar, your thoughts on the Adani group stocks? Has anything changed post the kind of announcements coming in on the prepayment and the management looking to regain the investors' confidence?
No, I think this is definitely good news, Sakshi, because the markets were definitely happy and excited to know that a large part of the funding taken by the promoter to fund ACC and Ambuja acquisitions has now been paid off. Obviously, at a group level, the debt is definitely down. In fact, if my understanding is right, for Ambuja as well as for ACC, I think the promoter had taken some funding on their own names. So this definitely has given a lot of confidence to investors that now, at least on the debt side, the company is confident of repaying its debts. The cash flows continue to be solid. But I
Hmm.
think from a stock perspective, I would believe that this group will remain under pressure for some more time. As I
Sure.
mentioned to you that this may take at least a couple of quarters before one regains the entire confidence of the market. So I don't think till that time you're going to see a runaway rally. Yes, these kind of momentum bounces could come in, but as you mentioned, these are typical momentary bounces. How sustainable they are, it's very
Yeah.
difficult to comment. So I think it's better to wait and watch for some more time.
Okay. One more stock that we'll discuss before we move on to the next news flows, and that is Tech Mahindra shares that have been rallying today. In fact, the shares rose almost 10% as Infosys veteran Mohit Joshi will join in as CEO. He will be succeeding CP Gurnani, whose term is set to end on December 19th as well. The stock has been buoyant today. Of course, this is a particular news flow that has led to this bounce in the stock today. But Tech Mahindra as a whole, how would you really look at the stock going forward from here? What would your thought be, and how would you advise investors to approach it?
I think definitely, this succession plan seems to be quite solid. I think the market is happy with the new successor. But let me tell you, a stock which goes up by 8 to 9% in a single day, just on the news of the, new, successor is definitely more of a sentimental move. So I would say that, maybe, the markets are looking at faster growth to happen, but this may not happen in the immediate 1 or 2 quarters. Clearly, I think we see a recovery only from, say, the June or July month of 2023, once some of the dust settles down, from their key markets like US and Europe. Fundamentally, the stock looks attractive. I would
Yeah.
believe that any dip, if anybody gets, should definitely be used to accumulate. I think the next 2 years should be pretty impressive for Tech Mahindra, but provided one buys on dips, not at the current price.
Sure, understood that. Let's move on to news flows coming in from the auto space now. Hyundai Motor India has signed a term sheet with General Motors to explore the likelihood of buying General Motors India's plant in Talegaon in Maharashtra, which has a capacity of 1.3 lakh vehicles annually. In fact, my colleague Chetan Bhutani has been tracking this space to understand more from him. What all does the term sheet really cover, and what does it really mean for both the car makers? Let me go across to him first before coming to you, Mr. Gorakshakar. Chetan, help me understand. You've been traveling, I know, and you've been tracking this story, so thanks for joining in. Help us understand, what does the news really mean for both the car makers involved and for the auto sector in the large?
News for Hyundai as well. In fact, if I just quickly mention to our viewers, a term sheet it literally is a non-binding agreement that details the terms and conditions of a proposed investment, and is kind of a precursor to a more detailed, legally binding pact usually used for corporate mergers and acquisitions. In fact, Hyundai has in India, of course, committed about a 4,000 crore rupee investment for electric vehicles in India, and Talegaon plant has a capacity of about 1.3 lakh vehicles annually. In fact, when I spoke to some sources after the news broke, the term sheet is likely to be valid for a stipulated time frame, as the final sale agreement maybe soon only be signed after Hyundai has received legal clearances from various authorities, including settlement with the retrenched Talegaon plant workers, which earlier belonged to General Motors. In fact, the company stated that the term sheet covers the acquisition of land and buildings and certain machinery and equipment for manufacturing situated at the General Motors India's Talegaon plant. But yes, the issues are far from yet to be over. They have to be, of course, be taking care of the workers who were retrenched, and of course pay their salaries and outstanding dues. Then of course they'll have to overtake them. But remember what my sources in Hyundai have told me, that the company would be using this to export the car called Venue, and of course increase its capacity for electric vehicles, and of course the Hyundai Creta.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Chetan, for that update. Mr. Gorakshakar, how do you see this development, and what does it mean for the auto space? Today, the auto stocks are in fact down in trade, of course, led by the overall market volatility. But how are you approaching this space, and what does the news flow really mean for the entire auto sector?
No, I think clearly, Sakshi, I think today the auto sector is growing quite significantly. And, today most of the existing players are hunting for spare capacity. This ready capacity is definitely a good positive for Hyundai because it helps them, get into the manufacturing mode immediately. And that is something which will help them ramp up their volumes. And obviously, their entry into the electric vehicles would obviously help them. So I think net it's positive for Hyundai, and I think for the entire automobile sector. Broadly, I would believe that the commercial vehicle space, the passenger car space are two segments where we could see strong double-digit growth for the next 6 to 12 months. So I think this dip which is happening in the market should be looked upon as a good opportunity if one wants to add them to their portfolios. I don't think fundamentally anything has gone wrong. The markets are scared that interest rates could dampen demand, but this has hardly impacted demand till now. So we think, the secular demand will continue to grow, at least for the next financial year.
All right, understood that. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Gorakshakar, for being with us on the show and discussing with us the various pockets in the markets and how should investors be really approaching the markets as of now. The markets are slipping away further, 440 points down for the Sensex right now, 58,695. We've given up that 58,700 mark as well. As far as the Nifty is concerned, we are now below 17,300 and 17,291 is the current level at which we are hovering near, about 120 points lower in trade. About a 0.7% of a cut is what you're witnessing. But Mr. Gorakshakar really pointed out 17,200, the near-term support for the Nifty. Until we breach that, we are still okay. But once we breach that, there could be some more selling pressure coming in. So keep an eye out on the markets, and we'll continue to help you understand what really the markets will be flowing from here on. But to end this show, let us leave you with some fantastic images from Oscars 2023, where India has logged 2 big victories at the 95th Academy Awards. Natu Natu from RRR has won the Best Original Song. The Elephant Whisperers has won the Best Documentary in the short category. In fact, we did see Deepika Padukone attending the event as a presenter. She introduced the live performance of Natu Natu, in which Rahul Sipliganj and Kala Bhairav sang and Lauren Gottlieb danced. The team of Natu Natu got a standing ovation after their performance as well. Appreciations flowing in from across social media platforms. We've seen Prime Minister Modi to everyone in the Indian film fraternity really showering praises for Natu Natu team and RRR, calling it the golden day for the Indian cinema. Just look at these visuals and I'm sure you will enjoy them as well. Many thanks for tuning in onto the show.